Hey guys, welcome to the Black Rock Mountain preview. We're going to go through all the cards in just a second, but first I want to say that I am very excited about Black Rock Mountain. I wasn't before, but I'm now excited because of all the card reviews, and the reveals have showed that the cards are very powerful and that there are a ton of common cards. So there's actually going to be a very large impact on the arena. We're going to go through all the themes I'm going to cover. I'm going to try to keep this short, maybe like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, so we'll see how long it actually goes. And we're going to more than going over each card, we're going to look at how it changes the entire landscape of the arena. So remember when Nax first came out, Spectral Knight came out as a card. And, it looked like a good card. It was a 4/6. It was nothing new. There was a Spiteful Smith already that was 4/6, but it had this really nice ability where you couldn't target it. And the thought was, well, if you can't target it, how do you remove it? You remove it with a board. Sounds like a simple mechanic. What happens? It instantly becomes one of the top cards in the entire game, despite not having a very good stat distribution, and it was because at the time, there was no good way to counter it if you didn't already have what was necessary on the board to kill it. That's all that card did. It was unable to be removed by a spell, which in the pre-Nax era was what you needed to do anything. Then, GVG happens. And what happens in GVG? Everything's on the board now. There's a ton of super sticky minions. You can always get back on the board. There's a million ways to not use spells, but to use minions to help or to fully remove a minion on the board, even if you can't target it with a spell. Spectral Knight becomes significantly less good than it used to be. And Spectral Knight hasn't changed in the entire time, right? The meta gets a little faster, new mechanics are introduced to counter it, and certain cards go up and down. So that's what we're trying to look at. It's easy to look at a card like, God, what the hell is that Shaman card? Well, first of all, this card, like a Dark Iron Skulker, and say, oh God, this card's amazing. Or a Fire Guard Destroyer, and say, hey, is that better or worse than a Fire Elemental? It's not as good as a Fire Elemental, but it's close. What we're going to try to do is get into the themes of how this will actually affect the arena. And the three themes I want to focus on, which are very basic, is one, slow it down. I made nice little pictures of these words on the top, so I can keep just tapping one button and bring it back. Slow it down. The meta is going to slow down. And the meta is going to slow down because we have just introduced a whole crap ton of cards that are 4 mana and above. There's exactly one common card that's neutral that's 3 mana. And it is not all that good. It's not bad, but, it's kind of just, it's a 2/4, has a very small chance of being a 3/5. Maybe if you play it really later on in the game when you're more guaranteed to draw your dragons, your very few dragons. So not game-changing. On the other hand, you have these amazing cards that are of a much higher mana, such as a Dragon King Crusher, a Hungry Dragon, a Volcanic Drake. Well, Volcanic Drake isn't really a 6 mana card, but it gets played later on. So the game is going to slow down, generally speaking. Second big thing, clear the board. We had been, GVG especially, made it made it almost impossible to clear the board efficiently. And it gave a lot of incentives to going face. You have a lot of small stuff. They can't remove your small stuff. They don't have enough attacks on the board and in their hand because it also reduced the amount of removals you had in order to remove all of your things. And so you can just go face, deal enough damage, and then finish them off with reach. It's a very good dimension to add to the game. But what's happening now is not only that the entire game is going to slow down by a couple steps, and one turn in the arena is like night and day. Like that's all you need to change the entire meta of the arena is to slow each game on average down by 1 turn, because all of your strategies for early aggro become so much less effective if you just need to take that 1 extra turn. Because if you don't get the damage in, he clears your board, now you're sitting on there trying to draw 2 reach cards instead of just 1. And if you have reach cards in like a third of your deck, that's still giving them, 2-3 more turns to finish you off. So clearing the board becomes more effective now. And why does clearing the board become more effective? It's because of all of these really, it's the major mechanic that they added in Black Rock Mountain. They're going to try to tell you, like, Blizzard's going to say, oh, look at all these dragons. They're fancy. They're dragons. But the real mechanic that was added, arena-wise at least, that we all need to care about is, well, I have to find one of these cards. There's a bunch of them. Solemn Vigil. Costs 1 less for each minion that died that turn. Dragon's Breath costs 1 less for each minions that died that turn. Volcanic Lumberger. This is just a stupid card. Costs 1 less for each mana that died this turn. And this Drake guy, Volcanic Drake, costs 1 less for each minion that died this turn. The cost one less mana for each minion that died this turn is an amazing, absolutely amazing reason for you to clear the board. You already had stuff like this, right? Like, if you don't clear the board, what happens? Even in Classic, the worst thing that can happen from not clearing the board, everyone will say, Cult Master, right? Like, what are you playing around Cult Master? Well, Cult Master is bad, but now you have a Volcanic Drake, which is just as bad, if not worse, than a Cult Master. And now you have all these random class cards that are just as bad, if not worse, than a Cult Master. So you have a lot of incentives to clear the board now, more than before. And the worst part about all of these is that it's not a card you actually have to have. Once these cards enter the meta, people will have to play around them. You have to give respect to these cards, regardless of whether your opponent has it or not. So when you play by not clearing the board each turn, you're giving even more variance up for your opponent to be able to do something to swing the board. They always had it, but they're just going to have more and more of it now. The downside is that it does have to, your minion does have to die. So it's more about whether you want to clear the board with a lot of smaller minions, or as opposed to a bigger one. Like, whether your opponent has a lot of smaller minions or a bigger one. If your opponent drops a huge minion down, he's still not going to kill a lot of your minions. So if you have a bunch of small minions, you're still not terribly incentivized to clear him. But if you had a lot of more even matchups, like a bunch of mid-range minions each or a bunch of small minions each, you're more incentivized now to clear the board instead of going face and seeing what he does. Which will change the meta, and you'll see once you start playing the game. You try to play like a little more aggressive, like you did in GVG pre BRM, and it'll come back and bite you with these cards like Volcanic Drake. And we'll get to Volcanic Drake especially. I think this is a huge arena game changing card, probably the biggest arena game changer. It may not seem like it. It's definitely not the best card that's been revealed. Well, that's in Blackrock Mountain. But it is going to be the biggest game-changing card in terms of how you play around stuff. And you may not notice its effects, but then you'll just notice yourself getting more and more conservative, and you'll think, why? I don't know, maybe the meta's changing. It's Volcanic Drake. You get burned a couple times by it, and you'll start doing things you didn't before. And the third theme, the final theme that's going to appear a lot, is win game now. This is very apparent in GVG, and this seems to be the entire philosophy of Blizzard in making cards, which may not be their like underlying goal, right? Like maybe it is their underlying goal. Maybe they're thinking, hey, fun, right? What's fun? Oh, you just swing the board immediately, and oh, I win, and there are all these stories. That's what they say anyway. But it actually is just really, really, really hard to make new and interesting mechanics in cards without either going with a power creep, like a very significant power creep, or to make the cards basically unusable. So, because you've already made all the neutral cards, right? You have like a 4/4, you have a 5/5, you have a 5/6, you have a 4/5. You're not going to make more neutral cards. You're going to need to do stuff with them. So just being creative creates these variance cards. And any card that has a high upside and a high downside, or just a high upside that's just really hard to trigger, creates these kind of game swings. When you have the board now, you're more likely to win and snowball. When you don't have the board, you're more likely to get back on the board. So games will just swing back and forth a lot more. Back in Classic, if you had the board on turn 4 and you knew what you were doing, you can pretty much guarantee that you can keep the board. Now in GVG even, that's not something you can say. The board will swing back 2-3 times, and it's just going to swing back more. And with each expansion that comes out, it's going to swing back even more, because you just can't. There's a game development problem here. And we'll go into that afterwards. So after I'm done going over all of these cards, we're going to go into some game development kind of theories on what Blizzard is doing and where the arena meta is headed. So stay tuned. I've already used 10 minutes, so maybe this will go on for more like 45 minutes to an hour. But if that's all you're going to listen for, just know that these are the 3 things that's going to happen to the meta in the arena. Oh, and also know that Warrior is going to suck even more now. In case it's not obvious, because Blizzard hates Warrior. Just absolutely hates Warrior. Not even a little bit of love. It's like Garrosh did something bad or something. Like maybe he's an evil person. But they really do like Gul'dan. Just doesn't make any sense. Okay, so let's go over the cards. Let's go for mechanics. We're going to start with mechanics, and this is going to trigger some discussion on the cards. First mechanic is the Volcanic Drake. Well, let's start talking about it. It's my favorite thing to talk about right now for BRM because, like I said, it's going to make the biggest difference. How do you trigger this mechanic? You need stuff on the board. You can trigger it with a board clear. You can trigger it with some weird thing to do where you like ping something and then you use a removal, or you use like a double removal, like maybe a cleave or something, and then a weapon. Weapons are actually very good for this because you could pay for the mana on the previous turn. But that's still just knocking down like 2 minions. What's 2 minions knocked off on a Volcanic Drake? That's a 4 mana 6/4. It's good, I guess. Like, is a 4 mana 6/4 even better than, I don't know, just like a pretty normal 4-drop? I don't know. 6/4 is a horrible stat distribution, so who knows? But it's probably not going to be on turn 4, and it's probably going to not be a very big game changer, and you're probably not going to think, oh, Volcanic Drake, I'm so glad I drafted you because I could play you for 4 mana. When you are going to be really amazed by a card like Volcanic Drake is when you have the board and you have these small minions, and then your opponent either doesn't remove it or doesn't get the chance to because you're controlling the board, and you swing all of these into whatever he drops. You kill it. You trade 3 for 1. Right? They drop a Sunwalker, you trade 3 for 1. Normally, you kind of just lose 3 cards, and you're like, oh, wow, I'm really behind on cards now. That was a really good Sunwalker because I didn't have a hard removal. Now, you're like, well, I still have all the tempo I had on the board, plus whatever I dropped. Because each thing that died was good tempo from a Volcanic Drake perspective. Which means I have actually, like, by you dropping something for me to trade into, or dropping multiple things for me to trade into, what you have done on this board in which I have tempo in is you have given me even more tempo than you would have if you like just spent removal or somehow were able to like mathematically reduce my tempo by the amount of mana you had. It takes the tempo you currently have from the board and it puts it to an exponential level. I said this before in the last time we talked about this, but the only other card that does this is Frostwolf Warlord. That does it well anyway. And Frostwolf Warlord's entire tempo can be nullified with 1 hard removal, right? It's just 1 minion. You don't care if it's a 4/4 or if it's like a 9/9 if you hex it. But Volcanic Drake, the only counter is Flame Strike, and that's just 1 card in 1 class. Every other class, you have to do something to remove the Drake. So, incredibly swingy card. And this is a card where if you try to go phase, it'll just lose you the game because you get an extra really big thing out that will not only end your life faster, but it's just an extra thing with an extra attack, and it can take care of your biggest minion. When you go to the class cards, the same mechanic still works, and in some cases it works even better, like a Volcanic Lumberer. Like, what's better than a 6/4? Well, a 7/8 that taunts, right? Like, if your opponent goes face and then leaves your minions on the board, you throw out this Volcanic Lumbar for 5 mana, which is very doable, by the way. For 5 mana, that just means you take some combination of you trade 3 of your guys to his 1 guy, or you trade 2 of your guys to his 2 guys, and then you can bring it out for 5 mana. This can even be on turn, like the Volcanic Drake can probably usually not come out before turn 4, but the Volcanic Lumberer can come out as early as turn 5. It could come out before then if you have like a Haunted Creeper that you pop, or you like, yeah, I was gonna say Muster, but you don't have Muster as Druid. It's an incredibly ramped up card, possibly. And even if it's not ramped up, even if you're playing on turn 9 or turn 10, you can play it on a much lower mana and get this kind of tempo boost. As long as you have a board, which means as long as your opponent leaves you a board. So again, a lot of incentive to clear the board. And in the same way, these are also cards that wins the game immediately. Right? You have this 1 swing turn where the Volcanic Lumberer or a Volcanic Drake comes on the board, your opponent loses the game. You can't come back from that. The tempo swings have become too big that the games are going to be won and lost on that single turn, which is why, if you're a good player especially, clearing the board becomes even more important now. And then the other ones are a little less good. You have the mage one, Dragon's Breath, which sure, you can get some mana advantages, but you have to be in this weird position where you have to clear part of his board but still leave a part of his board for you to Dragon's Breath. Kind of awkward, but same idea, right? you still get more tempo for having tempo on the board. It's just a little more situational, but the function's the same. And then Solemn Vigil, which is draw 2 cards. It lets you reload on a small board, and especially because for the Paladin, you have a 1/1 that you can tap into. So it can get really insane in terms of how much this card is coming out for. You just need to make a 1-on-1 trade for this to be an Arcane Intellect. So it's an insanely good card. I don't even want to guess right now because I haven't looked into the tier scores for the new cards yet. I've been working all day. I'm going back to work after this, but this card is going to be at worst in Arcane Intellect. It's instantly better than even a Battle Rage, even though it only draws 2 cards, because you can generally play it for 1 mana at some point. And you'll probably have 1 mana to spare, especially if you're a Paladin and your hero power is pretty good, that you're kind of okay just using it in any situation. So again, you leave people with a board, and you're going to pay. But GVG rules still apply. It's still really hard to clear the board, which makes even more win the game now variants. Okay. Am I missing any of these cards? I think that's it. I think that's it for the minions dying this turn mechanic. All right. So the next mechanic I'm going to review are dragons. I think it's something Blizzard pushes a lot. Hey, we have dragon tribal synergies, and it's really nice to actually see these synergies come in, because dragons have been in the game since the very beginning with nothing. But I put in some rough numbers, and you're going to get somewhere along the lines of, on average, if you draft based on the tier list, 2.5 dragons per deck, right? A little over 2.5 dragons, not quite 3 dragons per deck. So, and dragons are not, and the thing with dragons is that it's not let's say a beast, where there's a lot of kind of beasts, or mechs, where there's a decent amount of mid-range mechs, where you're I could take it, I could not, and then you see you have some synergies, you're oh yeah, I'll take more mechs. Dragons are great. They're good cards. Fairy Dragon aside, which is the only okayish card. You want a Hungry Dragon, you want your Volcanic Drakes, you want your Draconic Crushers. They're all above average cards. They're all good cards. Alright, Dragonkin Sorcerer is kind of average. But for the most part, if you're going to get an Azure Drake, you're going to get an Azure Drake. You're not making these decisions. So you also can't draft with dragons in mind, really. So the synergies kind of happen, and they happen very rarely. And it's not that they're worthless synergies. This isn't oh no, the ship's cannon fired. But it's not going to be like a Mech Warper. And one more reason that it's not a Mech Warper is because there's no Mech Warpers. The only 2 things that use Dragon Synergy is Blackwing Technician and Blackwing Corruptor. And they're both one use. Right? You have the dragon in your hand, you use it, and one of the downsides is now your opponent knows you have a dragon in your hand. And based on what you've played the turns before, maybe you just top decked it. But for the most part, they may be able to kind of guess what kind of dragon you have. Someone in the chat asked, how many mechs per deck do we expect currently? We expect 3.5 mechs per deck currently. And dragons are going to come in at below 3. At least in the way we're currently rating the dragons. And this is just, it's not the same, right? Arena is not the same as Constructed. These cards are not going to have the same effect. But on the other hand, when they do have an effect, it wins the game. Blackwind Corruptor, that's a mini fire elemental. You can't, and it's not even a great card. So if your kind of cards gets the synergy like that, just totally randomly, because you're holding 2 dragons because you just happen to draft them because they're good and they happen to be in your hand, and you had other things to play, so you held them, and then you had a Blackwing Corruptor, and you win the game. There's not much you can do about it. Blackwing Technician, much less good of a card. A 3/5 on turn 3 is amazing, but you're not going to mulligan for dragons for the most part. And so your chances of drawing your dragon is very low. So it's actually a 3/5 later in the game, which makes it a lot less good than it seems. Because the difference between a 2/4 and a 3/5 is ridiculous. It's probably the biggest jump in difference in the entire game in terms of usefulness for a +1/+1 to get added on something. Maybe 3/4 to a Yeti. No, 2/4 to a 3/5. But it's just not going to be played on turn 3 often enough. Now, when it does get played, when someone does luck into it, it's, win the game. You end the game right there. So you're going to see dragon synergies, but it's more because these dragons are good. The current dragons are good, the new dragons are good. What Blizzard did a really good job of in these common cards is that they added all very playable cards. These cards are all average or above average or good or great. None of them are below average. They added below average like rare cards, but these are all playable cards. And you see this pattern that's generally followed where most of the class cards even are like very playable cards, which is, very good for Blizzard to do because you want people to be playing these cards. Like Druid of the Flame, come on, a 2/5? And then there's a choose one? It could just be a 2/5 and it would be like one of the highest statted 3-drops in the entire game. Now, the notable exceptions in terms of the commons that are not just below average, but far below average into unplayable category is, well, okay, Twilight Wall, definitely below average. So this is one of those, like, you don't want to pick it. It's a bad card. But Priest has so many great cards already, right? Like, the Priest is not missing great cards. This is not really hurting the Priest all that much. But Gang Up, totally worthless in the arena. You just, yeah, you can pick the Tyrion or you can pick your opponents, whatever, but your opponents are going to have generally worse cards in the arena than in Constructed. And while you're likely to draw into it, it matters a lot less in the arena what you draw into, so much as it matters that you draw a certain number of cards or that you have stuff to play. So using up a card, like losing a card to stack your deck with better minions, is just not a good proposition, even if you're playing a Control Rogue. And of course, Blizzard hates Garrosh, and so we get this card for the Warrior because, and we'll move into the next point right now, which is that the worst classes got better. The worst classes statistically, Hunter, which got that, better than Dark Bomb card and Quick Shot, deal 3 damage. Your hand is empty, draw a card. Your hand doesn't have to be empty. We'll talk about this mechanic next, but it's a Dark Bomb, and Dark Bomb is great. And Dark Bomb is great, and Dark Bomb is even better for a Hunter because they currently have less things that ping and like deal damage around that they can swing. So Quick Shot is actually going to be better for the Hunter than Dark Bomb is for the Warlock, and its reach because Hunters needed more reach. So Hunter, common class card, incredibly good. What other classes not doing so well? Shaman, very hurt by the meta, not doing so well. So what do they get? The best 4-drop in the entire game. That's just what they got. They already had the best 6-drop. Now they have the best 4-drop. This is just, I don't know who thought this was balanced. I don't know who looked around in the dev team and thought, hey, this is a good card we can give them. What really happens is Blizzard, admittedly, doesn't take anything into account about the arena when they create these cards. They create it purely for constructed purposes. And I can totally see why this card is fine in constructed. A 3/6, it's not the best stat distribution in constructed. And it overloads 1 onto your turn 5, which you want to drop the Earth Elemental maybe. These are not arena things. In arena, it's a 4 mana, it overloads your turn 5, your 4 drops are pretty much as good as your 5 drops, and then you turn 6 Fire Elemental. It's stupid. It's a stupidly good card. There's not much around it. There's no brilliant way to play it. It's kind of like Fire Elemental, right? Like, the more you draft these, the more you win. It's fine. It's not like the Shaman was the best class. They could definitely use a boost, but you follow this philosophy and you keep following it, and you have the Warlock, the second worst class next to Warrior, and you get Imp Gang Boss. I can't decide which is better, the Fireguard Destroyer or the Imp Gang Boss. I think it's probably the Imp Gang Boss. How you want to value this card is, first it's a demon, but you want to look at it compared to 2 different cards. One is Imp Master, which is after 1 turn of surviving, it is a 1/3 with 2 1/1s. Imp Gang Boss is a 2 whatever, like it deals 2 damage twice because it can actually be hit, which is kind of the point, and it has 2 1/1s. Its first 1/1 gets 1 less turn to attack. But other than that, it is strictly a better card than Imp Master, and it can't get finished off on the first turn that it gets dropped for the most part. So you get to actually deal the 2 damage without losing one of your 1/1s, and actually it generates it afterwards. So it has the Death Rattle-y kind of effect, which is insanely good, as you see with all the Death Rattle, the piloted cards. And the other cards you compare it to is Harvest Golem. Why is Harvest Golem so good? It only does 2 attack for a 3-drop. Which should be awful. It's good only because it trades with 3 2s. Right? And if you're control, it keeps something sticky on the board. But the even bigger point right here is that it trades with a 3/2 and leaves something behind. Whereas a 3/3 would not trade with a 3/2 and leave something behind. And with a 2-3, technically, it does the same thing, right? Like, it hits a 2-3 twice, leaves a 2-1 behind. A 3-3 would hit a 2-3 once and leave a 3-1 behind and eat the 2-3. So a 3-3 is actually better against the 2-3 than a Harvest Golem, because it leaves a 3-1 instead of a 2-1 after all the trades are taken into account. But yet, Harvest Golem is still that good with only 2 attack, and it's because of the 3-2s. Imp Gang Boss not only does what a Harvest Golem does, but it generates the 1-1 before it dies, and it stays around as a 2-1. So it gets the Harvest Golem benefit, gets a 1-1, and it has another Death Rattle effect of getting a 1-1. And if you heal it and you hit it again on something else, you get even more 1-1s. And Warlocks love 1-1s because they always need things on the board to buff. And they always need things on the board to ping. So it's just such an insane deck, insane card in terms of just pure value. And it is also insane in terms of how well it fits a Warlock. And it's a demon. And this is something that goes into the slow it down category. While the entire game is slowing down, the Imp Gang Boss allows the Warlock to actually speed up. Because one of the Warlock's drafting problems was always that there's no class 2 drop, there's no class 3 drop. So you have this whole class that's centered around like getting things out fast and staying on the board. And it relies on neutral cards. Its class cards are like these huge ass demons that like don't come out, and you try to like, call them out, and you have to do fancy things to like appease them. But now you have this kind of just stands by itself, does its job, solid minion that is better than any other 3-drop in the entire game. So game changing. Like Imp Gang Boss and Fireguard Destroyer are game changing. The Hunter card is not game changing, but it's still a very, very good card. Yeti level probably. Maybe a little worse than a Yeti. I'll go over the whole draw cards on your hand is empty mechanic next. And then you get to the Warrior, which is the worst class in the arena right now by stats. And they get the Axe Flinger, which is, you see it. It doesn't fit the Warrior. Warrior has no cards right now that kind of just deals face damage for no good reason. It's not that kind of class. They decided to make it part of that kind of class, and they made a card that is very understated in exchange for not just dealing face damage, because it's not even good face damage, but the potential to deal more face damage. I guess it fits the idea that you want to ping it to hurt your own thing, which kind of fits with what the Warrior is doing. But really, this is just, it's unusable in the arena. It's like an Ancient Mage. You don't want to make comparisons to Ancient Mage. And so you see all these classes that are going to move up because of their class cards, and then you see the Warrior that's going to move down. One more thing that's going to happen with classes is that they're going to move up based on how the meta is moving, right? Like Shaman didn't get screwed by a GVG. It got Crackle. It's a decent card. Shaman got screwed by GVG because the meta moved. The meta moved like 3 steps forward, and the Shaman couldn't keep up. So where's the meta moving? The meta is getting slower. People are going to be incentivized to clear the board, and you're going to win the game more often with swing cards. In that situation, you want a you want a class that can do things from all positions, and you want a class that does better when things are slowed down. That's not the Warrior. What does that class fit? When things are slowed down, that's not necessarily good for the Warlock, but they get a class to go. They get a good class card to go. When things are slowing down, Shaman? The whole reason they're not so good in GVG is because things sped up. Things are going to slow down. They're incentivized to clear your board, but they may not be able to because you can always generate things on the board. So they're missing attacks compared to the Shaman, which was always one of the Shaman's old advantages. And then the Shaman just got this ridiculous card in the comments. So Shaman's going to come back in a big way, and it was already making gains. We were talking about this before. It was already making gains. Rogue, not going to be doing very well. It was, it doesn't go well with a slower game, and it did not get a very good common card. But it does have Dark Iron Skulker, which is purely in the win game now category of you can't play around it. So one of the ways to win the game is to play cards that you can't really effectively play around, right? Like Dark Bombs, Dark Iron Skulkers, where, it's a rare card or it's an epic card, and if it happens, you kind of just lose, and you're like, okay, I got Dark Iron Skulkered. If you're up a lot, you try to play around it a little, but like if you have small minions, you want to play them against the rogue. You always want to play small minions against the rogue. Why? Because it's harder for the rogues to remove the small minions than your big minions. You play a big thing, it gets sapped, it gets, at best, assassinated. You play a bunch of small things that have no board clear besides Blade Flurry, which requires some kind of weapon combo, you can kind of see it coming. Dark Iron Skulker changes all that. It gives it something that can effectively clear large parts of the board. And yes, I know the Warrior got one too, but you have to be at 12 or less health, which, let's face it, only certain decks are going to purposely put you to 12 or less health without worrying about a card like this if it can. And it deals damage to your own minions too, so you would have to be behind on the board. And if you're a Warrior and you're at 12 health and you're behind on the board, unless you're really close to dealing lethal, you're dead. This card is not going to save you. This card is... it's going to help you get back on the board a bit because it's only 2 mana, which is kind of its goal. But you still have to take care of any lingering things. Like 3 health is not... it's not going to totally clear the board. A lot of things have 4 health. A lot of things have more than that. And you're going to have a weapon. You're going to have something else. And you're just going to be very much in danger. It's a very kind of like... you're already in such a bad position that it could win you some games, but it's not going to win you that many games. It's not an awful card. But, it's a rare card, and it's not a game changer that I think some people think it is. But the class I want to get to that's going to gain the most... oh yeah, Druid. Druid has the same thing going for it that the Warlock does, which is that it gets a 3-drop. So it gets to keep its momentum. Druid now, actually, I really like where they went with this. We're still in the slow it down mode. See how this is a 2-5? Yeah, it's a 5-2 as well, but no, it's a 2-5. It's always going to be played in the arena as a 2-5. Very slow. You don't deal the face damage. You're not able to trade up with it. You're trading down. You're getting more minions on the board. You're slowing down. You're playing the board. It allows you to better clear the board. Even though this is hard to clear, if you play as the Druid, you have an extra thing on the board, extra body, more things. Creates a lot of smaller minions, or like small damage minions, and it creates this clear the board kind of dynamic. So, but what I really like with the Druid is that it has this draft consistency now, where you have 2 2-drops that are common, that are great, great for 2-drops, and now you have a 3-drop that's common, that's great for a 3-drop. So you are now, as the Druid, the best curving out class ever, which is great because you also have a hero power that's the absolute neutral. So now in the arena, the Druid is truly kind of this like very well centered class, which I like. That's kind of how I always play the Druid, and it's very good to see it going that way. And Volcanic Lumber is just such a powerful card. But where the meta is really going, I keep getting sidetracked, is to the Mage. The meta is going to the Mage for 2 reasons. One, the Hungry Dragon. Your opponent plays a Hungry Dragon. He already has something on the board. He eats up the 1-cost minion because it's pointless. He just gets eaten up by anything. And now he has a 5/6. No other class can deal with this. The best you can do is Hex it. Otherwise, at 4 mana, no one can do anything. At 5 mana, you could like assassinate it, right? You could like sap it if you're a rogue. But it takes very ridiculously specific answers for every class besides the Mage. The Mage, most common removal spell, Fireball, boom, gone. And we're not just done there. 6 health has become kind of a thing now, right? With the Shamans, that's going to get a little more popular. You have another 4 mana card that, lo and behold, has 6 health. And then Mages are going to get more popular. Mages have actually dipped a bit in popularity with the rise of Paladins, but they're going to get a bit more popular. And what do Mages have? Water Elemental, something else that's 6 health. More good cards out of the very few cards that were added. So what BlackRock did is it adds quality over quantity. So, yeah. So the cards that they do add, you're just going to see in the arena all the time. Each of these cards will pop up once out of every other draft, approximately. And you're most likely going to take it. And what else has 6 health? Draconic Crusher. Normally, what's a 6-drop? It's an Ogre, right? Ogre's the only real 6-drop that you put out. And that has 7 health. And that was always kind of a pain for the Mage, because it makes your Fireball, which is a very efficient removal, be 6 mana for 6 mana, because you have to ping it. You can't leave like a 6/1 on the board, right? It's not very good. But with the Draconic Crusher, unless it gets played with the buff, without the buff, it's a 6/6. It'll often get played without the buff, actually. And we'll talk about this after that. But it's a 6/6, and it just created another very powerful 6 card with 6 health that'll get played at some point in the game. So mages are going to gain a lot back in this meta, despite not getting a good class card at all. Okay, so Draconid Crusher. How often is this going to be triggered? Here's an anti-example of clear the board. It tries to make you not clear the board. You generally want to clear the board, but if you have a turn which you could bring your opponent down to below 15 health, you can choose to not clear the board, play the Draconid, and it gets a 9/9, and you can gamble with it on the board. So it does create one interesting dynamic out of the way more cards that incentivize you to clear the board. And I also have to say, just to be complete, Imp Gang Boss also incentivizes you to not clear the board, which is part of the whole Warlock thing, right? Like with Void Caller, now Imp Gang Boss, like, yeah, you can hit us, you could like clear the board, but one, it'll be really hard, and two, you kind of don't want to do it because you're just giving us more tempo the more you try to remove our minions. So I really like Imp Gang Boss. This is kind of like the card right now in BRM for me in terms of class cards. And the last mechanic that I want to talk about is the Hunter mechanic. It's a Hunter-specific mechanic, and it kind of pushes Hunter into this area that I don't like Hunter, which is we're going to empty our hand, we're going to play really, really aggro, we're going to use our hero power repeatedly, get face damage, and then we're going to win or lose. I don't like it because it's RPS. You win or you lose. Kind of has something to do with your play, but much more so, it just has to do with what you draw and what your opponent draws. So not terribly exciting. And it's getting pushed in this direction with two cards that get value if your hand is empty. Core Rager 4/4, kind of okay in the arena. Also a beast, so not that bad. If your hand is empty, gain +3/+3. Quick Shot, deal 3 damage. If your hand is empty, draw a card, which at 2 mana means get something else to play this turn. Both very powerful if you empty your hand. But the cost to empty, remember, everything's going to be shifting back about 1 turn in terms of the speed of this game, just because of what cards are going to be offered and all the big cards are going to be offered. And when everything shifts back, even in GVG, in the current meta, it's no longer the first month of GVG when you can build a super fast deck and be really effective. It's very inconsistent to try to build that fast deck, even if you succeed in building the fast deck, because you'll run into the RPS, right? Rock, paper, scissors. You're rock, someone's going to be paper. Even if 6 out of 10 games are going to be rock, you're not going to get a very high win rate if you lose 4 out of 10. This just plays right into that. It'll trick you to go more aggro in terms of your and to go lower in your curve than it's worth it. And these cards aren't game winning. They're just it's just 1 extra card when you don't have any cards. This is just +3/+3, which turns if you're top decking and you're not gonna play this on turn 4. You're gonna play this on turn like 6 or 7, and then your next turn you're gonna lose all the tempo, right? This gains what, like 2.5 free extra tempo? Well, you're gonna lose it on the next turn when you draw your 2 mana card and you can't do anything with your 8 mana, but play a 2 mana card and tap your hero power. So it's just a trap. These are it's like the dragon synergies, right? It shouldn't really affect how you draft your deck. But if you do hit upon it, it's pretty good, right? You get a 7/7 instead of a 4/4 for your card. It's not really about the mana cost. And Quick Shot, you get an extra card, which is very good for when you empty out your hand. So it looks like it's incentivizing very quick play, but it's really more making this card a little more flexible. So as a hunter, it's not that you don't want to run out of cards eventually. I'm not saying like, oh, you should keep drawing cards as a hunter. That's the way to play. But I'm saying, so if you do end up with like 3 cards left, one of them's a Quick Shot, you may think about not playing it and then try to empty out your hand and play it to draw a card to play the next turn or even on the same turn. It's a consideration, but it's not. Like, this is not this is not a huge value on top of a Dark Bomb. This is kind of a Dark Bomb with a slight upside. Okay, so that kind of covers, I think, all of the cards that are worth covering. Do we miss anything? Demon Wrath, whatever. It's a rare card. As if the Warlock doesn't have enough, these kind of like all-around board clear kind of things. And it deals 2 damage. You already had Hellfire. You're not playing around anything else. So something else I'm looking for is what you play around, right? Demon Rat doesn't really make you play around anything, so it doesn't really matter. Imp Gang Boss you can't play around, but it matters so much because nothing you do really affects it very well, right? Like Imp Gang Boss trades up with everything. Any 3-drop, any 2-drop, it just keeps trading up. So Fireguard Destroyer again doesn't really affect how you play, but something like Dark Iron Skulker, I mean it doesn't because it's a rare card, but if you knew your opponent had it, it would totally affect the way you play. So depending on how often it's seen, and it's not going to be seen that often, it creates this. This is kind of like the worst thing, right? You have a mechanic that your class doesn't have, and it's a rare card, and you have no reason to play around it unless you're really far up, and then your opponent has it. Win game now. Gang Up. This will be so interesting. I really want to see what people do with it in Constructed. Resurrect. Right, we didn't talk about the Priest, sorry. So Priest got some of the worst cards besides Warrior in this whole thing, which is fine. They've been getting insane cards in the last 2 expansions, so it's only fair. Twilight Whelp, not a good card. It's a 2-1. It's a Priest. You don't want a 2-1. You're not going to be holding a dragon in the beginning, and if it's late game and you drop a 2-3, it's still not going to matter. Resurrect. Not that good in the arena. You're going to have a lot of low drops. You're not going to be able to build that deck where you don't have 2 drops, So you can only play... So the reason you're thinking like 2 mana, right? You're going to get, what, on average, a 3-drop? Actually kind of weird because a piloted shredders make the odds on this go a little down. And if you have anything that generates tokens or something, right? You could like resummon a token. So it's very iffy to use. But even if, let's say, it guarantees you to drop a 3-mana minion when you play it, you're getting a 3-mana minion for 2 mana on turn, I don't know, 6, 7, whenever you want, whenever you feel like you have a good enough odds that it's not just going to get your like 1 or 2 drop back. It's not a bad card. It's definitely like a playable card, but it's nothing to write home about. Then again, people really like Unstable Portal, and statistically and from what we see, it's still not a card to write home about. I would say this is definitely worse than Unstable Portal because although this is not totally random, you play your small minions first. So it's not totally random, but in the wrong way. At least Unstable Portal is totally random. You're guaranteed that if it costs more, I guess this you just get it out. But the Unstable Portal allows you to not play that card, right? Or play it at the appropriate time. Whereas the Resurrect just puts something out. Anything else? Paladins did not need to get more powerful. There you have it. Is there anything we haven't really talked about? Okay, so Druid of the Flame. It's a 2/5, which looks like it has a lot of tempo, but I don't think it's one of the best 3-drop. I mean, it's obviously up there in 3-drops, but it kind of trades evenly, and just evenly with all the 3-drops. You put a Scarlet Crusader out there, trades evenly. You put a Harvest Golem out there, trades evenly. Heck, you put a Bear out there, trades evenly. So it has the same effect as eating up a 3/2, and it also has the bonus effect of trading up with a 2/3, but those are just 2-drops, right? You're a 3-drop, you should be trading up to a 2-drop. It guarantees that trade up to a 2-drop, which is nice. But it'll get finished off by a 3-drop, and it won't kill your opponent's 3-drop, right? Like, let's say your opponent drops a 3/2 and you eat it. Well, now your opponent's Harvest Golem or any other 3-drop that he plays is going to eat up your Druid of the Flame, as 3-drops are meant to do. So it doesn't really... It's a 2/5. It comes out very early. It's meant to stop aggro or eat up a bunch of tokens. So it'll do its job and it will slow it down, but it's not a terribly powerful card despite its stats. And just to be clear, Dragon's Egg is awful. It's not even bad. It's beyond terrible. It's 1 mana, and you get 1 mana's worth of tempo out of it eventually when it dies. You're not going to hit it twice, most likely. And if you do, you spend a lot of resources to try to get 1 extra minion that's a 2/1 on the board, turns later. This is not an arena card at all. And Grim Patron, you need to put it out on the turn when you can deal damage to it. So if you're a warrior, go for it. If you happen to have an unstable ghoul or other stuff, go for it. But other than that, it's such an awful card. And I guess we haven't talked about Hungry Dragon. It's a very normal card. This is like, surprisingly, when you first saw it, you thought it was an interesting card, right? But this is one of the most like normally neutral cards in Blackrock Mountain. It's a 4-drop. It's a 5/6. It creates the new 6 health meta. It's going to be played all the time. It's a great card. I think some people are underrating it because it's just one body, but the only problem you have when it's just one big body is that it can get removed, right? But that happens after turn 4. On turn 4, nothing removes this without also trading in that 1-cost minion, which is going to be pretty much your opponent's worst minion on the board anyway. So at worst, your opponent uses a removal that would have been used on a 4-drop anyway, and then removes this also. Yeah, weak to something like a sword, but that's kind of about it. Dragonkin Sorcerer, very normal 3/5 card. Blackwing Corruptor, again, win the game swing card. Blackwing Technician, slight chance of win the game, but normally not. And you see that the common cards, right? That's a 2/4, that's a 3/5. This is a 6/6 where its attack doesn't matter, it's 6. This is a 5/6, still has more health than it has attack. Volcanic Drake isn't a card that's played out on curve. So you're adding a whole bunch of these cards, and same going down to the Druid of the Flame, 2/5. Everything is slowing it down. In the early game, the game is going to no longer be trading minions, it's going to be about boards getting stickier. So what class benefits from a board getting stickier? Because the boards are going to get much stickier with these minions out. Like, we're no longer in the trading minion zone. That's one of the biggest changes that's going to happen. The board was already sticky with GVG, but it's more with sticky with little stuff. Now it's going to be sticky with big stuff and little stuff. You're just going to be in this like constant flux of the board. And it's Priest. Yep, chat knows it. Priest is going to do really well in this meta, and maybe it's Blizzard's intention, maybe it's just happenstance, but they got 2 crappy cards. Because the meta is going to really turn in their direction. Priest and Mage also, right? Mage is generally, we Flame Strike. We have a hero power that doesn't deal damage to our face and pings. It's usually played much more conservatively. And also, Druid's kind of weird, right? Like, it plays slow, but it never needs a board because everything taunts. So having a board questionably helps the Druid, but it is good with the slower meta, and it got 2 very powerful cards. So those are classes moving up. And if you're listening to this, I know it sounds like, oh my god, all the classes are getting better. They are. Rogue aside, all the classes are getting better. And Warrior obviously is getting much worse because Blizzard hates Warrior. I don't even know why. Like, and at no point was anybody who was like looking over these cards be like, hey, we really should give the Warriors something very good for the arena because they already suck now. And you don't want the like disparity to get so big. Because it's already big now. GVG made the disparity between the best classes and like the not so good classes very large. And to Warrior, like Mage or Paladin to Warrior, that's not even a comparison. Like, the gap is bigger than pre-Nax Hunter after the Unleash nerf compared to Mage at that time. And at that time, I thought Hunter was unplayable. That's where Warrior is going to be. It's going to be like near unplayable, but more playable in the sense that now almost all classes are playable because it's just going to be more swingy. There's going to be more win game now, regardless of what class you are. So what class you pick, matters less and less. Okay, so we're going to finish up with like a 10-minute discussion on Blizzard game design, which this kind of leads really nicely into. The first thing a lot of people are talking about with the release of today's cards is power creep, which is real, and it is happening. And this card is a very good example of it. There's no reason it should be this powerful. There's absolutely no reason. This is what, like 2.5, so that's like a 5.56 for 4 mana and 2/3 of a mana. Yeah. Overloaded mana is worth like 2/3 of a mana. That's not right. There's nothing, it's awful. And worst of all is that it's 4 mana overloading on turn 5, which who the hell needs 5 mana, right? Like, what's 5 mana doing for you? Unless you have a Tiger or something, it's not. Silverhand Knight maybe, Spectral Knight, but they're kind of, you could play a Yeti and be almost as good, right? Especially with the influx recently of all these great 3-drops. The whole GVG thing, like the biggest thing you'll notice in the arena that changed, if you like just haven't touched the game and came back to GVG, is whoa, 3-drops matter now. They're not just like glorified 2-drops. It used to be 5-drops are glorified 4-drops, 3-drops are glorified 2-drops. Now 3-drops are really their own thing. 5-drops are still kind of glorified 4-drops though. So you're just overloading on a turn when it doesn't really matter. Is it the best card? No. Shaman itself has an even more powerful card at 6 mana, so I can't really say much about that. But there's definitely a power creep going on here. And you kind of need to, or else you can't get people to play these cards, right? Like, the only reason I'm excited about Blackrock Mountain is that there are all these more powerful cards, is that the meta will change. If you come out with a bunch of, like, crappy cards, like GVG came out with a ton of cards, but so many of them were so crappy that it did change the meta, but not as much as you would think inserting a third of the card base would be, right? Like, it changed things like maybe to the degree of 15%, 20% more cards. Blackrock Mountain's only adding like 7% more cards, but the impact is going to be like as much as if it added like 15, 20% more cards. It's going to be a huge impact. So I understand why Blizzard's doing it, and I like it, but there's definitely a power creep going on. And Blizzard's philosophy is that there are cards that cap out the power, right? You have your fireballs, you have your true silvers, you have your flame strikes and your fire elementals and your fury war axes, and nothing is going to beat those. And that's their definition of power creep, right? Like, it's not going to surpass that. There's a ceiling, we're not going to go over it. And in that sense, there's no power creep because nothing's better than those cards still. Those are still some of the best cards. But the average card that's being introduced is really leaving behind a lot of the other cards that used to be somewhat playable. Like, in Classic, you got a bear as a 3-drop, and you're like, oh, I got a bear. Now you get an Ironford Grizzly, and you're like, oh my god, I'm going to lose the game because I'm going to play the Ironford Grizzly on turn 3 and just lose, because everything's better than a Grizzly. I also, if you want to, like, this is just for a fun thing, if you want to, like, actually write out what Imp Gang Boss trades in with other 3-drops, it's kind of hilarious. It just ends up winning everything. It's not even close to being a fair card. So there is a power creep. I'm not that worried about it in terms of how it tops out on the power. So for a constructive perspective, kind of don't care. But from an arena perspective, like, arena is self-balancing, right? So we're going to go into Blizzard's design philosophy on the arena. Blizzard very self-admittedly says, we do not design cards for the arena. We have never changed the card because of arena. We think of cards for constructed, and then we kind of just throw them into the arena and we see what happens. They like things that are like, oh, this creates a fun experience for people, you know, like, oh, there's a huge, you know, swing and it's win the game now, and, you know, everything's happy. Fine. But what the end result of that philosophy is that there's kind of no gatekeeper to the arena. You just get all these cards, and it self-balances in a really nice way because you're always offered bad cards. You always have to take everything, and so everything's even. But with more and more cards on the upper end of the spectrum, you will also have this large body of bad cards that if you get offered them, you'll fall farther behind on your deck. So your deck variance is also going to be higher. At least until you hit a certain critical point of good cards, which we haven't yet, where you just basically don't have bad cards anymore. So maybe it's going that direction, and that would be good. So again, I'm just not too worried about power creep in the arena. It's kind of like self-adjusting. So the other thing I want to talk about for game design is, I guess we're already talking about it, just how much Blizzard hates Garrosh. Come on, Blizzard. Like, next expansion, let's say you're making 3 class cards. It's like a common, a rare, an epic, or like, you know, 2 common or 3 commons. All 3 better be amazing cards for the warrior. All 3 of them. Because anything less than that would just sink this class even lower. And it is my favorite class, and as a, you know, like, I still do pretty well with the warrior. It's not my worst class by far in the arena, but you just see the power drop, and the meta's not favoring it. It's just, I mean, there's no design decision on Blizzard's part, right? But there are casualties. And I think that Blizzard really needs to watch out when it comes to making sure these casualties aren't, like, endemic, right? You have to make sure not everybody plays Mage because you just happen to be giving Mage all these great arena cards. And you have to make sure that, like, Warrior is playable. and it's very much moving to the unplayable section. Okay, so I guess the last thing that I promise is to kind of show how cards are valued in the tier list, and we're just gonna go through. There's a whole like talk session between me and Mervs, and that'll happen on Wednesday night before we value everything. And it's good that we know where all the cards are. I think we do at least where all the cards are going to be released, so we don't have to do all the work at once. But you take a card like, let's go with the Dragon King Sorcerer. It's a very neutral normal card, right? It's a 3/5. It's a dragon. Dragons also don't matter, as I've discussed. It's just kind of going to be an overrated tribal synergy for the arena. Whenever you target this minion with a spell, gain +1/+1. So we first look at a neutral 3/5. And what is a neutral 3/5? We have this whole list of like what a neutral 3/5 for 4 mana is, what a neutral 3/4 for 3 mana is, what a neutral 4/4 for 4 mana is, what a Yeti is, that kind of stuff. And a Dragonkin Sorcerer's base, if I can find it, is 50 points. I think 3/5 is a very normal kind of thing to hit. And I think we're overrating a little. I may actually just move all the 3/5s down like 2 points. Especially as it was better before when 3-drops were worse, because it would just trade up with any 3-drop. But 3-drops are better now. It doesn't actually trade up with most 3-drops, right? So maybe it's time to move the whole base down. But that's the kind of thing we think about, right? We start with the base, and then we see how much we move it up. This is a crappy ability. It moves up nothing. Except in certain classes. You have like a druid or a paladin, and all of a sudden, it's not that bad of an ability. But then we move it up for each class. And then we look at what else does the class do. So what else is happening in with a card that has a similar mechanic as this. Echoing Ooze, right? You buff it, and it gets an extra bonus compared to what it normally is. So we already have a scaling system for Echoing Ooze, and we'll look at to see whether there's any kind of similarities there. And if we give Dragon King Sorcerer a higher or lower bonus, we need to be able to justify it for the class. And if we don't have a very good justification, maybe it's time to move Ooze's scaling up or down based on the class. And like right now, I just looked at the 3/5, and I said, look, we've been treating it as a 50, but look at all these great 3-drops coming in that are all going to trade positively with a Dragon King Sorcerer. Maybe it's not as good. But then again, we are also getting a lot of 2/3s for a 3-drop, which generally we think is playable, but which the Dragon King Sorcerer would trade as well as, just as well as a Yeti would. So we would think about these things, but if we move Dragonkin down because we don't think its stat distribution is good, we'll move all the 3/5s down. So this is like a very normal card, and you see how much thought needs to go in before we can properly value it. And now we can look at something that is, just one more example, something that's a little more shifty. Okay, so what's a weird card? What do you guys want to see? Give me a card to value. I'm just going to take the first person who types something into chat. That's a card name from BRM. And we'll value that, and then I'll end the stream because we're hitting up on an hour. Major Domo. Okay. Not a legendary. Dragon Consort. Wait. Really? This is going to be a really boring answer. I can just give you this right now. The ability is worth next to nothing. Like maybe 2 points. Because you're not going to get that many dragons. It's a very powerful ability, but you're really not going to get that many dragons. And to play the dragon afterwards, you're playing it later because this is 5 mana. And so it's just a 5/5 neutral card. 5/5 for us is 58 points. So this will be like 60. I'm almost certain this will start out at 60. I can't even think it's going to be at 62. I'll take another one. The 6/6 that gets bigger. Okay, let's do that one. That's interesting. So we take the 6/6 that gets bigger, which is not the Volcanic Drake, but the Draconic Crusher. It's a 6/6, so we start off with a base value of 54 points, which is where we have 6/6 at. 54 points is pretty good, but it's not amazing. And it's far below a lot of the other 6/6 for 6 that you see, like Dread Inferno or a Tempo Enforcer, And it's even a lot below a Boulder Fist Ogre. And it's a lot below a Boulder Fist Ogre because that 7 health does come into play now and then. And it's an extra stat, right? Whenever things get an extra stat, especially if it's defense, it goes up a lot. And when it's defense, it goes up a lot because, not because, a lot of things deal, 6 damage and not 7 damage or anything like that. It's because oftentimes you have 2 things on the board that make up 6 damage that they'll trade into it. Or you have something that buffs something by +2 to make something that deals 4 damage, now deals 6 damage. And you can't do that if it has 7 damage. So health is always very important. So that's why we have it. We have the Boulder Fist Ogre so high comparatively. So now we look at its ability. Well, it's a dragon, and we don't give any considerations to dragon right now. That may change. We'll see how the arena goes, right? Like, we're always adjusting these things. But the battle cry is your opponent has 15 or less health, gain +3/+3. How useful is that? Right, +3/+3 is huge because it's basically free. You lose like 1 stat to get it, but +3/+3 makes it a 9/9. So the question is, how much better is a 9/9 than a 6/6? And the answer is not that much better. A 9/9 and like a 6/9, first of all, is practically the same. So that 3 attack is almost entirely wasted except for face damage. And then you get the 9 defense, which is good. But in order to trigger it, you either already have to be hitting so much face that you're obviously very much winning and you don't really need this card to do anything, so it's not going to affect how much you win. Or, more likely, you're in a scenario where you have this board and you have 8 damage on the board, and so you can bring your opponent down to 15 health, but you'll have to give up some kind of trade on the board, or you have to swing your weapon to the face, or you'll have to do something that you don't necessarily want to do to bring him down to 15 health so you can play this card. So that's the built-in cost to this card. So it's not a free +3/+3. There's ways that you have to play in order to get there. That being said, if you want to trigger it, it can be triggered fairly often. And one of the reasons you would want to trade, one of the most common reasons, that you're afraid of a board clear. And Dragon Crusher at 9 health is kind of as immune to a board clear as you can get. So it still plays into this whole, clear the board situation where Volcanic Drakes, Cult Masters, Frostwolf Warlords, or whatever, right, can totally screw you. But it's not as bad as normal going to the face, just because you're able to drop a 9 mana, a 9 health minion. So we look at the percent chance in which in a normal regular game you'd be able to trigger it, and then we adjust based on the mana for it. So my adjustments for it, and I had done this before, and Merps will have his take on it, is that this ability, because it can be triggered very frequently if you wanted to, but you can also choose not to trigger and still get a 54 base. Anything with an ability above a base that's actually usable gets a good boost, by the way. So I have it as 74 right now, because I think it is something that you can trigger on a fairly frequent basis. And the best part is, it synergizes with the less than 15 health thing, right? Some things have negative synergy. Like Cult Master has negative synergy. You have a lot of stuff on the board. What do you want to do with it? You don't want to draw cards. You want to kill your opponent, right? You want to trade stuff in and get more tempo. But Cult Master is totally anti-tempo. It's 4 mana for a 4/2. And yeah, you draw a bunch of cards, but that's not tempo. So Cult Master has that forces you to do something different thing. Dragon Crusher does the exact same you want to do. What did you just do? You just hit face a bunch of times. What options are open to you now? Putting him on lethal. What does something that deals 9 damage do? Typically, a 9/9 and a 6/9 is not that big of a difference, but now when we're playing a Dragon Crusher, it is. So it has synergy with exactly what it's doing. This is also why Volcanic Drake is so good. It's either a dead card, which is not that bad. A lot of cards are kind of dead cards in your hand, or it's amazing because it does exactly what you want to do, right? It's not the Cult Master. It trades stuff in, and then it gets you more tempo. But a Dragon Crusher, those 3 damage is not actually terribly wasted, and it prevents against one of the biggest downsides if you're going face. So it covers a lot of the bases, and it has a very high raw value. So that's why I currently have it at 74. We'll see whether it moves up or down. Merps usually can talk me at a good almost full tier around on these cards. Okay, I'm going to take 3 questions from chat before I go, and I really need to go back to work. One question is, will BlackRock change how you value silence? No, not really. Silence is as valuable as it always is. There's not BlackRock didn't add enough cards that'll make silence not good, and not enough of its cards are silenceable, right? Like Blackwing Corruptor, not silenceable. Blackwing Technician, you can silence it to get rid of 1/1, which cards with silence usually give up 1/1 of stats anyway, right? Dragon and Sorcerer will almost never be triggered. Dragon and Crusher, yes, that is one additional target, but one additional target out of all these cards is not that big. Hungry Dragon can't even be silenced. Volcanic Dragon can't be silenced. It's not getting any better, and there's not enough cards to make it really get that much worse. Any other questions that have been asked that I missed? Also, yeah, the Draconid Crusher would be really good in Hunter. Synergy. Okay. Okay, Yeti. This is a good question. How will Yeti be affected in the arena? The Yeti will be affected in the arena in the sense that it used to trade evenly with Yetis and evenly with 5/4s, but otherwise it would kind of kill a lot of 4-drops and 3-drops. But more important than that is not that it actually trades positively with things, because if you think about it, it really doesn't trade positively with all that many things. Now that you think about it, right? Because what has 4 health that's 4 mana, that's not 5 attack. What's good about the Yeti is that it lets you stick on the board, and these other 4-drops also lets you the Hungry Dragon also lets you. This is the only 4-drop that matters. It also lets you stick on the board. And so the worst part about the Hungry Dragon is it deals 5 damage and it kills the Yeti, but it also kills all the 3/5s too. Like, it kills everything. I don't think the Yeti is made worse by the fact that it can be killed by this one card, because everything else dies the same exact way to this card. Would it make 5/4s better? Maybe a little, but 5/4s are always just very bad because of True Silver. But I guess I don't see it changing a lot in the meta. It's kind of where it is. And there's a bunch of 3-drops, which the Yeti is in no better position to eat up than it used to be. So didn't really change there either. You have powerful 3-drops, but you get one more 2/4 that you're not going to see all that often because it's just an average card. Like, you'll see this maybe 1 out of every 5 or 6 decks you face. It's just none of this is game changing enough. 2 3s or 3 2s given the influx of 3-drops. Kind of the same. I mean, 2 3s get a little better based on the stat distribution, but again, there's not going to be enough of these to make these very fundamental changes between 2 3s and 3 2s. The game is going to get a bit slower, but that doesn't affect your 2 3 and 3 2 drops, because that's more of a consideration for actually dropping it. And that's it. We're about 8 minutes over. That's all right. And we'll end the stream now, and we'll post this on YouTube tomorrow. So thanks for tuning in. I unfortunately really got to go. This is a really busy couple days for me work-wise. But we'll definitely have everything ready for you before us tier list wise and Hearth Arena wise before the game is updated. And there will be a stream tomorrow, Merps, and there will be another stream on Thursday, right after BRM comes out with Sheng, and I will join him for the second run. And then I will also most likely, no promises yet, but most likely I will be streaming Friday night. And if not Friday night, then Saturday. I'll figure it out, because I really want to get a lot of games in, and might as well stream them. Okay, so thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you around this week and this weekend. There'll be a lot of streams going on, so it's a good time to be a Hearthstone player. Excited about BRM, and I will not actually be playing another game of Hearthstone until BRM comes out. So, see you guys.